Before we begin, if you're listening to this alone at night, you're exactly where you should be. Subscribe and turn on notifications for more true horror stories, disturbing encounters, and unexplained events uploaded every day. Now lock your doors, turn off the lights, and let's get into tonight's stories. Every rideshare driver eventually gets a passenger they never forget. Most of the time, it's for a good reason. Maybe they're funny. Maybe they're generous. Maybe they leave a huge tip. The passenger I never forgot was different, because by the end of the ride, he knew where I lived. And I never told him. This happened in the fall of 2022. At the time, I drove for Uber on weekends outside Atlanta, Georgia. It wasn't my full-time job. Just extra income. A few nights a week. A few hours after work. Simple. Most passengers were completely normal. Airport rides, bar pickups, hotel runs. Nothing unusual. The night this happened started exactly the same way. Friday, around 9 p.m. Steady demand. Good tips. Everything routine. Then around 11:30 p.m., I accepted a ride request from downtown. The pickup location sat near several bars and restaurants. Nothing unusual. I arrived a few minutes later. The passenger stood alone near the curb. Male. Mid-40s. Doc jacket. Small backpack. Normal appearance. Nothing immediately stood out. He entered the vehicle, gave a polite greeting, then sat silently. The destination sat roughly 30 minutes away. A residential area outside the city. Simple ride. At least initially. The first 10 minutes passed without conversation. Completely normal. Then the passenger suddenly spoke. He asked how long I'd been driving. Standard question. I answered. The conversation continued. Nothing unusual. Until he asked where I lived. My stomach tightened slightly. Because I never answer that question. Most drivers don't. It's unnecessary. I laughed it off. Changed the subject. The passenger smiled. Then let it go. Or at least I thought he did. Several minutes later, he began making observations. Small observations. Harmless observations. At first, he mentioned traffic patterns near certain neighborhoods. Mentioned local restaurants. Mentioned roads. Nothing alarming. Then he mentioned my neighborhood. My blood immediately ran cold. Because I hadn't told him where I lived. Not even approximately. The realization immediately made me uncomfortable. I asked how he knew the area. The passenger shrugged. Then casually mentioned several nearby streets. All within minutes of my house. My stomach tightened. Still, maybe coincidence. Maybe. Atlanta has millions of people. Reasonable explanation. The ride continued. Then he mentioned my subdivision. Specifically, my blood immediately turned cold. Because now coincidence felt unlikely. Very unlikely. I asked directly how he knew it. The passenger smiled. Then changed the subject. The response genuinely unsettled me. Because he clearly noticed my reaction. And seemed amused by it. The remainder of the ride felt uncomfortable. Very uncomfortable. Every answer I gave became shorter. Every minute felt longer. Eventually we reached the destination. A quiet residential street. The passenger exited, then leaned back toward the open window, and said something I'll never forget. He said, "Drive safe getting home." My blood immediately ran cold. Because the statement sounded ordinary. Yet the way he said it felt different. Intentional. Like a reminder. Like a message. The passenger smiled, then walked away. The ride ended, but the feeling remained. I couldn't shake it. Not at all. Eventually I convinced myself I was overreacting. Maybe. Until 2 nights later. Around midnight. I returned home after driving. Pulled into my driveway. And froze. Because a piece of paper sat beneath my windshield wiper. My stomach immediately tightened. The paper contained only a single sentence. Handwritten. 4 words. Nice neighborhood. My blood immediately turned to ice. Because nobody should have known where I lived. Nobody. The realization genuinely terrified me. Police became involved. Reports were filed. The rideshare company was notified. The investigation expanded. Eventually authorities identified the passenger. A repeat offender connected to multiple stalking complaints. Someone known for gathering personal information from service workers, drivers, cashiers, servers, anyone with predictable routines. Thankfully, The incident stopped after police intervention. But one detail still bothers me, because investigators reviewed surveillance footage from my neighborhood and discovered something disturbing. The passenger hadn't visited my house after the ride, at least not that night. Instead, footage showed him driving through the area days before we ever met. The realization genuinely unsettled me, because it meant he didn't learn where I lived during the ride. He already knew, and that's the thought that still bothers me most. Not that he found my house, but that he may have recognized me long before I ever picked him up. The first destination change didn't bother me. The second was annoying. The third made me nervous. By the fourth, I was actively looking for reasons to end the ride, because every time I got close to the destination, the passenger would update it. Every single time. And each new destination took us farther from the city. Farther from traffic. Farther from people. Eventually I realized something terrifying. I didn't think the passenger was trying to get somewhere. I think he was trying to get me somewhere. This happened in the summer of 2023. At the time, I drove Uber part-time outside Dallas, Texas. Mostly evenings. Mostly weekends. The money was good enough that I often stayed online until 2 or 3 in the morning. Most late-night rides followed the same pattern. Airport pickups, bar crowds, hotel runs. Nothing unusual, nothing memorable. Then one Saturday night, around 1:15 a.m., I accepted a ride request downtown. The passenger stood alone near a convenience store. Male, mid-30s, dark hoodie, small duffel bag. Nothing immediately stood out. He entered the vehicle, gave a brief greeting, then sat quietly. The destination appeared approximately 20 minutes away. Simple ride. Or so I thought. The first 10 minutes passed without conversation. Everything felt normal. Then my GPS suddenly recalculated. The destination changed. My stomach tightened slightly. Because destination updates happen. People make mistakes. People change plans. Not unusual. Still, the timing felt strange. The update occurred less than 2 minutes before arrival. The new destination added another 15 minutes. The passenger apologized. Claimed he'd entered the wrong address. Reasonable explanation. I continued driving. Eventually we approached the second destination. Then it happened again. GPS recalculated. New destination. Farther away. My stomach tightened, because now the situation felt less normal. Not alarming, just unusual. The passenger apologized again. Different explanation this time. Meeting location changed. Friend moved. Something along those lines. The story sounded rushed, poorly rehearsed. Still, possible. I continued. The city gradually disappeared behind us. Traffic decreased. Streetlights became less frequent. The surroundings felt increasingly isolated. Then came the third destination change. My blood immediately ran cold. Because now the destination sat nearly 40 minutes outside the city. The realization genuinely bothered me. 3 changes. 3 different explanations. 3 different locations. Nothing about it felt normal anymore. I finally asked whether everything was okay. The passenger smiled, then said, "Just keep following the GPS." The answer immediately unsettled me, because it wasn't really an answer at all. The ride continued. Silence filled the vehicle. The atmosphere became increasingly uncomfortable. Then I noticed something. The passenger wasn't looking at his phone. My stomach tightened immediately, because most passengers changing destinations repeatedly are coordinating with somebody. Texting, calling, checking maps. Something. This passenger wasn't doing any of that. He simply watched the road, almost as if he already knew where we were going. The realization genuinely frightened me, because if he already knew the destination, why keep changing it? Eventually we reached another rural road. No traffic, no businesses, no houses, nothing. Then the GPS updated again. 4th destination change. My blood immediately turned to ice, because the new location didn't appear near anything. No visible landmarks. No obvious destination. Just darkness. The realization finally pushed me over the edge. I informed the passenger that I was ending the ride. Immediately, the response surprised me, because he didn't argue, didn't complain, didn't seem upset. Instead, he smiled. A small smile. Then said, "We're almost there." My stomach immediately dropped, because the statement implied something important. He expected me to continue. Expected it with confidence. The realization genuinely terrified me. I pulled into a well-lit gas station, stopped the vehicle, and informed him the ride was over. The passenger sat silently for several seconds, then slowly exited. Without argument, without frustration, without surprise. The reaction felt wrong. Very wrong. Most passengers complain. Most passengers ask questions. This passenger acted like he'd already anticipated the outcome. I immediately left. The fear stayed with me long afterward. Still, I convinced myself I was probably overreacting. Maybe. Until 3 days later, when police contacted me. Their call immediately made my stomach tighten. Because investigators wanted information about that ride. Apparently, the passenger had been connected to another incident later that same evening. An incident occurring near the final destination. The details remained limited, but officers asked specifically about the repeated destination changes. The question immediately stood out, because it confirmed something. They considered the behavior important too. The investigation expanded, and eventually authorities discovered something disturbing. The passenger had used similar ride patterns before. Multiple destination changes, late-night routes, increasingly isolated locations, always with different drivers. The realization genuinely frightened me, because now it appeared the ride wasn't random. Not at all. Authorities never revealed exactly what they believed his intentions were. And honestly, I didn't ask. Some questions are better left unanswered. Still, one detail has haunted me ever since, because investigators later reviewed GPS records from that night and discovered something strange. The final destination wasn't selected from the passenger's phone. My blood immediately ran cold, because every destination change before that one came from the app. The last one didn't. Instead, the coordinates had been manually entered days earlier, before the ride was ever requested, before I ever accepted it. The realization genuinely unsettled me, because it meant the passenger hadn't chosen that location spontaneously. He'd planned it, long before we met, and that's the thought that still keeps me awake. Not where he wanted to go, but why he wanted a rideshare driver to take him there in the first place. The ride should have been canceled after 5 minutes. That's what the app allows. You arrive. You wait. The passenger doesn't show. You cancel. You move on. Simple. But this ride never felt simple, because the passenger never got into my car, never approached my vehicle, never appeared at all. And yet somehow, they knew exactly where I was sitting. This happened in October of 2023. At the time, I was driving Uber full-time outside Columbus, Ohio. I usually worked nights. The traffic was lighter, the payouts were better, and most passengers were easier to deal with. The night this happened was a Thursday. Nothing unusual, nothing memorable, just another shift. Around 1:40 a.m., I received a ride request. Pickup location: a small shopping plaza, mostly closed businesses, a few restaurants, a convenience store. Normal location. The passenger account had decent ratings. Nothing suspicious. I accepted. Arrived 7 minutes later. The parking lot sat mostly empty. A few cars. A few employees cleaning up for the night. Nothing strange. I parked near the pickup marker. Then tapped arrived. Standard procedure. The waiting timer began. Everything felt normal. At first. 1 minute passed. No passenger. 2 minutes. Nothing. 3 minutes. Still nobody. Then my phone buzzed. A message from the rider. The message read, "I can see you." My stomach immediately tightened, because the message felt strange. Very strange. Most passengers send, "I'm coming." 2 minutes. Wrong entrance. Normal things. Not that. I responded. Asked where they were. No reply. For nearly 30 seconds. Then another message arrived. Black SUV. Driver wearing gray hoodie. My blood immediately ran cold, because both descriptions were accurate. The realization genuinely unsettled me, because now I knew the passenger could see me, yet I couldn't see them. I looked around the parking lot. Nothing. No one approaching. No one waving. Nobody. The waiting timer continued. For minutes. Still nothing. Then another message appeared. "Don't leave yet." My stomach tightened immediately. The wording felt wrong. Not like a customer. More like a command. I looked around again. Still nothing. The lot remained mostly empty. Then I noticed movement. Across the parking lot. Near a dark section behind a closed store. A figure. Standing motionless. Watching. My blood immediately turned cold. Because the person wasn't walking toward me. Wasn't waving. Wasn't signaling. Just standing there. The realization genuinely frightened me. Then my phone buzzed again. You found me. My heart immediately started racing. Because now there was no doubt. The person in the darkness was the rider. Yet they still weren't approaching. The behavior made no sense. At all. I considered canceling immediately. I probably should have. Instead, curiosity got the better of me. I sent another message. Asked if they still wanted the ride. The reply came instantly. Maybe. My stomach dropped. Because now everything felt deliberate. Like the person wasn't trying to get somewhere. They were trying to keep me there. The realization genuinely terrified me. I locked the doors, then prepared to cancel. Before I could, another message appeared. And this one chilled me more than anything before. You should stop looking at me and start looking behind you. My blood instantly turned to ice. I turned around immediately. Nothing. The rear parking lot appeared empty. Completely empty. Yet the message had already accomplished its purpose. My nerves were shot. My attention divided. My instincts screaming that something was wrong. Very wrong. I canceled the ride. Immediately. Then started driving toward the exit. As I did, my phone buzzed again. Another message. Despite the canceled ride. The message read, "That was smart." My stomach immediately dropped. Because the rider shouldn't have been able to contact me anymore. Not after cancellation. Yet somehow the message arrived. The realization genuinely frightened me. I left the parking lot. Fast. Trying to convince myself the situation was merely strange. Not dangerous. Then another message arrived. This one contained only a description. My description. Male. Beard. Gray hoodie. My blood immediately ran cold. Because now the messages no longer felt like jokes. They felt like observations. Real observations. The fear stayed with me for the rest of the night. Still, I completed my shift, went home, and tried to forget about it. Then 2 days later, police contacted me. Their call immediately made my stomach tighten. Because they asked about that exact ride request. Apparently another driver reported a similar encounter. Same account. Same pickup area. Same behavior. The realization immediately changed everything. Because now it wasn't random. Not even close. Investigators reviewed records. And eventually uncovered several reports involving the same rider account. Late-night requests. No actual ride. Repeated messages. Observation-based comments. Drivers describing feeling watched. The pattern genuinely disturbed authorities. Because the account wasn't being used for transportation. It was being used for contact. For interaction. For observation. The investigation expanded. And eventually surveillance footage from nearby businesses revealed something disturbing. Multiple individuals appeared near the shopping plaza that night. Not one. Several. Positioned in different areas. Watching vehicles arrive. Watching drivers wait. The realization made me physically sick. Because while I thought I was communicating with one rider, multiple people may have been watching the parking lot. Watching me. Authorities eventually identified a suspect connected to the account. Someone with a history of harassment-related complaints. Thankfully, arrests followed. The ride requests stopped. The messages stopped. Everything stopped. But one detail still bothers me. Because investigators later reviewed all messages sent through the account. One draft message had never actually been delivered. A message saved but never sent. A message written only minutes before I canceled. The sentence still gives me chills. It read, "This one leaves sooner than the others." That line has haunted me ever since. Because it means somebody wasn't waiting for a ride. They were studying reactions, watching behavior, comparing people, and deciding which drivers stayed, and which drivers left. The thought still bothers me more than anything else. Because if I'd ignored my instincts, if I'd stayed in that parking lot another 10 minutes, I don't know what would have happened. And honestly, I never want to find out.